Mr. Madison, choose the topic.
I choose business ethics.
The American business environment has fundamentally changed following the insider trading and savings and loan scandals. Explain business ethics and how they are applied today.
The spirit of not doing the old mother-dad deal. How many times have you seen the little rascal so clever go in there and mama told him, you're not going to get it. And goes in to daddy, who only sees him after 5 in the afternoon, wants to love him, and says, you can have it, son. You can have that before dinner. And he goes back in and says, Mama, Daddy said I could have it. That's the old mom, dad, been around since the beginning of time. I'm not going to go for that here.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
The One Star Cowboys podcast is back, recording Sunday afternoon, August 24th, about 2 days away from cut downs and all that good stuff. We'll review the third preseason game where the Cowboys, boy, do they turn up at AT&T Stadium. Also, of course, plenty of drama regarding Micah Parsons. We'll continue that. I would like to start with actually some game stuff. What happened the other day in that preseason game? I'm joined with John Machota, Saad Youssef, and Kent Garrison. I'm Kevin Turner. It was good to see them actually get a few first downs and move the ball and then score a few times and actually play well, even though the preseason doesn't matter. What was your biggest takeaway from Friday night, John?
Yeah, that's the best Joe Milton's looked. I would say that's number one for me. The run game that was their best game. It's not really up for debate all across the board. I mean, considering who played in the game, obviously Ben DiNucci's playing for the Falcons. We're not going to read too much into how serious the outcome was or anything like that. But I thought the run game looked good, and that was a good sign after those first two preseason games. But for me, it was Joe Milton, and then it was the fact that Mazi Smith played the entire first half of a third preseason game. That's not really a great sign for somebody that's number one on your depth chart at defensive tackle. So that one's still up in the air. He might be a guy that doesn't make the roster, or maybe it comes down to over the next 24 hours or so when everyone's talking together, they ultimately decide, hey, it's probably best to keep him than to move on. I mean, really all it takes is just one person in the room to really be convicted that he deserves to be on the roster and vice versa. So that one's still up in the air, but that one stood out to me because generally in those games, first round picks that are starters on your depth chart generally don't have anything but street clothes on in that game.
Yeah, and also I think Schottenheimer's question or answers about questions regarding Mazi have been pretty non-committal, and he's done the coach speak of, looping in the whole roster. It's it's not just Mazi. I'm not making a comment on any player, but if you asked him about certain players, he wouldn't hesitate in making a comment. And I just don't mean like Dak, he'll tell you Kavontae Turpin's going to be on the roster or whatever. Damone Clark's going to be on the roster. But he's been pretty hesitant with Mazi. So that's been interesting. And then a couple other things that stood out to me. Number one was James.
Hold on, Saad, right before you get to those other ones, let me just say on the Mazi thing real quick too. So there's a play in the game where nobody blocks him and he gets a run stop. And just watching with my binoculars, on the sidelines, I can sum it up as simple as possible, and I'll throw it back to you, Saad. The way all of his teammates and coaches celebrated with him as he went to the sideline, you would have thought Denzel Jackson made that play, not your first-round pick starter. But anyway, sorry, going back to you.
Yeah, no, I remember that same thing, and I thought, I was like, I don't know if I turned to you and said that, but I was like, that was a play in the third preseason game. You would have thought it was Aaron Donald making that play against the Bengals in the Super Bowl, the way that, they were celebrating and congratulating him. So, yeah, that was definitely a thing. But James Houston, to me, has been a player that's going to, I think, give this coaching staff some fits here in the next couple of days, because the numbers are hard to make sense of how to include him, but it's just really it's tough for me to leave him off the 53, but it's one of those things where you have to say, well, whose spot is he taking? And I struggle with that question, but I just know James Houston consistently in the preseason and whatever I got to watch from afar. John was there in person, obviously in Oxnard, but it just seems like James Houston has had a really good training camp in preseason.
No doubt. I mean, to me, if James Houston doesn't make the team, I think that seems a little. What's Peyton Turner done to make the team? Like, that's the other name we're talking about here. Just because he was drafted in the first round?
Yeah, just with both of them, though, it's just like it would mean more to me if they were defensive tackles or corners or something, because they're so deep on the depth chart that I'm just kind of like that. I mean, to me, that's by far their deepest position. I don't even think it's debatable right now is their edge rushers. So I could see it going either way, to be honest with you. But if you were in a position where you're playing either of those, that's probably because there's been multiple injuries and somehow Micah Parsons is sitting out or something. So,
yeah. I mean, that's the thing with Mozzie is like, to me, I struggle to see how, because of the other names that they, because of the lack of names at defensive tackle, I struggle how you even can cut Mozzie. And I know that they're like, okay, well, it makes sense to cut him, bro. I don't know that it does. And I know that he hasn't played well. And I know he doesn't appear like it's ever going to get there, but who are the other names that make the team in front of him? Is
those almost 40 or so guys that are being cut by other teams?
Yeah.
That you find one of those that you're not just, if you move on from him, you're probably not set with what you have on the roster. You're probably looking to make a move. And we've already seen some moves today as we record this on Sunday. There's some trades and things like that happening. Potentially maybe they send a 7th round pick over to a team or something like that for someone who's on the bubble for them. That would be my play. I don't think it would be just cutting Mozzie because you're just like, oh, we saw enough from Perion Winfrey. Here we go. Like, I think there'd be another move that would follow.
Yeah. That's where you always, it always gets fun for me when it comes to talking about the Cowboys. I mean, even though we know Will McClay is handling a lot of stuff and his team and all that, but like even the other day when at practice and people are posting pictures of Stephen Jones taking pictures with clients or fans and Micah's, 10 feet away. And I'm like, that's what you want. When Jerry's on the blue carpet for the Netflix thing, I'm like, yeah, other GMs are out there grinding tape on these other preseason games, getting a good look at what the league has to offer. And we're doing all this, but we know, deeper down, there are people handling that part of the job, but it's just always a thing that's there in my head when that happens, because you do want people grinding on every other roster and the pro personnel people, and they are, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I say it's good. The offense is going to have to score a lot, and we know that, and that should make for at least a fun season.
The one I always go back to on that is, it really is the Johnny Manziel, Zach Martin thing, where it's not like Mozzie Smith's on the team because everybody else in the room, Will McClay, the scouts, coaching staff is like, we need to we can't draft Mozzie Smith. That's not a good player. And Jerry's like, no, I really like this guy. He was number one. Look, guys, I have Bruce Feldman's freaks list. He's number one on the list. That's who we're drafting. That's not what happens. I mean, he listens to the other people. So that's the only reason why I don't put too much stock into the whole, Jerry GM, like compared to other GMs and things like that. Like, he is listening to he knows he's not going to say it publicly because he, at the end of the day, he wants the credit for being the GM and the owner, but it's not like he's sitting there saying like, no, we need to get this running back or out of this school or something. That's not what's going on with them. And it hasn't for a long time.
Running back, we should probably talk about that. Who's getting left off here? Who are we trying to sneak to the practice squad? Is the deuce loose? Tell me.
I think Phil Maffa is the one that's going to be the odd man out that they're going to try and get back to the practice squad. Yeah, so that's where things appear to be headed right now. I guess it could change. Deuce did make a late push there. It would be surprising to me because he seems like the type of guy that you could get back on a practice squad, or, another running back of another team that gets cut. Maybe that's who you add to the practice squad. But right now I think it's 4, and I think that would be Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, Miles Sanders, and Hunter Lipke.
Yeah, and they don't ask me for my decision on this, but I would do Maffa probably over Miles Sanders if it was just me talking about it, because I think Maffa kind of brings a different element to the backfield that they tried to have with Zeke last year and stuff, but it was more of a by default thing of like he's old and slow, so he's our short yardage back. But I think Phil Maffa has some actual potential to be that. But I think it ends up being exactly what John said: Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue, and Hunter Lipke.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Saad. But it's also like no one's crying wolf if your 7th round draft pick gets scooped up by someone. But I liked Moffitt in college before he hurt his shoulder at Clemson. I mean, there's got that potential. It's a little different here, but I'm thinking like, do you remember the old Patriots guy, Gillisley?
Mike Gillisley.
Yeah, that guy would steal some touchdowns. I think Moffitt could actually fit that role, and that's actually a nice role to have if your quarterback's not going to do a lot of sneaking and we're not going to do a lot of tush pushing and things like that. To have something like that, I think Moffitt could fill that very nicely. And there's places that you're going to be able to skimp at. Tight end probably being one of them because of Hunter Lipke's versatility. So, like, you do have room to do that. It would be shocking to me if Deuce made the team, though. I think. Would y'all agree with that?
Yeah. I don't think that. My thing with Deuce is that the training camp plays, the preseason plays, we've seen those from him before, and it really hasn't translated on Sundays. And I don't know that he's been really given the best chance, and I don't see how he'll get that now because of the fact that a lot of the stuff you'd use him in, you pretty much are giving that stuff to Cavante Turpin, who's a smaller body size too. So
yeah,
that's the only reason why I don't think if Turpin's on the team, then that makes a little bit more sense. But I just think there's other areas where you're going to have to go a little bit deeper: offensive line, defensive back, maybe edge rusher. If edge rusher is that valuable and you have that many guys, why are you cutting the players that are talented for just so you can add another running back who, let's be honest, is probably not going to see the field in any of these games?
Yeah, and the thing I struggle with Deuce is he doesn't have a whole lot of special teams value, and then also even the plays that he makes in training camp and in the preseason, I just don't see him break tackles. Like, I haven't seen him make, when a guy gets a hand on Deuce, he goes down, and that's a tough spot for a running back to have that.
Can I be a jerk for a second?
Please do.
I'm going to rules that I'm unclear of here. With the advent of the emergency quarterback, you kind of just have a guy hanging around, so you don't have to carry 3 quarterbacks, right? Or is the emergency?
That sounds like that's what's going to happen with Greer anyway. I mean, he's going to be, he'll be your 3rd quarterback.
They're going to carry 3.
Yeah, no, but not on the 53. He'll be like that. They'll bring him back, and I still think that I don't think they're going to do anything else at quarterback. I'd be surprised if they do. I think it's going to be that on the 53 it'll be Dak and Milton, but it's not, Greer's not going anywhere, so he's going to be in the mix too. And then maybe it's one of those things where they move around pieces on the roster, and maybe Greer gets moved to the active roster, and maybe week 1 or 2 he is the backup, and then Milton's the emergency 3rd. I don't know, but I don't see them making a move at backup quarterback. I think what they have right now is what they're going to be going with into the season. I mean, does it make you feel any better to go get Hendon Hooker or some other player that gets cut by another team? I mean, is that really going to do much for you? And I just don't think I don't think that the player that would get fans being like, oh, this is definitively better than Greer and Milton. I don't think the Cowboys, when I say that, I mean Jerry Jones, will be willing to go after a player like that. I mean, Cooper Rush worked out well.
Yeah.
But let's not act like it was this major effort to go get him. No. If we have to give up a 5th, we'll give up. It's like he was very, very, very affordable and things worked out. But Jerry doesn't want to spend on backup quarterback. So that's why I don't see them making a play for another player. And if they did, oh my, would that speak volumes of what they think about Joe Milton.
I do love Saad's point, though, of Tommy DeVito. No, Danny DeVito would be a terrible quarterback. Oh, my God. Tommy DeVito. Just given that, we know Jerry likes the show. The other thing, the Eagles traded for Sam Howell, former 1st-round pick, Professor Howell, and then the Vikings went and got Carson Wentz. Man, feels like we're getting old now. My, how the turns tables. We've got wide receiver. Mingo hurt, so we'll go to Pup or IR. Well, it'll be Pup, right?
Yeah, he would probably be. It could technically be an IR one where he'll be out for the first 4 games, which
4 games.
lines up pretty well with what he's supposed to miss, coming back from the PCL injury. So that to me I just think it fits perfectly for Ryan Flanoy to take that spot, and then maybe they keep an extra. But if they were to go beyond Flanoy, I think it'll be Brooks over
Holden.
Yeah. And
You're with the resident Holden guy.
Yeah. And I maintain that, I was telling somebody the other day that, whatever we had between the start of training camp in Oxnard to the 2 practices back here, I think it was 18 total practices. I can't think of maybe more than 2 or 3 where there wasn't a play and where Holden made. Like, he was just consistently there. So I've also kind of wondered if they haven't showcased him that much in the preseason to try and get him back onto the practice squad. He would be ideal for practice squad, because then if there was, something to happen, you'd feel good. But where they're at right now, I don't think he does enough on special teams to jump Flanoy and Jalen Brooks. So that's my projection. I went with 5 wide receivers, having Mingo starting the season on the IR. So that would be Flanoy would be my 5th behind Jalen Tolbert, Turpin, obviously CD and Pickens.
Get on over to The Athletic, where you can actually look through, John's final kind of roster predictions and things like that. Again, it's Sunday when we're recording this. I want to be clear on that. These will go down on Tuesday. Could be moves in between, things like that, depending when you listen to the podcast. We do thank you for listening. Kent does a good job of getting that up for us, usually in the next morning. Make sure you're following Saad and John over on The Athletic. Let's go to offensive line here. Where are we at on Tyler Guyton? Haven't heard much about that, and they're probably just kind of keeping that close to the vest, maybe for strategy reasons. Who knows? What's going on there?
Yeah, I don't think week 1 is very likely at all. I think week 2 or 3 would be when you potentially see him back out there. Just seems like everything's headed down that path where Nate Thomas is going to be the starting left tackle in Philadelphia. And so, Tyler said last week that things are trending in a good direction. He keeps doing more and more. Brian Schottenheimer said yesterday that he thinks he'll be able to do some stuff on the field in practice. So this upcoming week. So obviously that's a good sign. Like, he's trending in the right direction. But again, when it happened, it was 4 to 6 weeks. And so that was even going to put you in a kind of a tight spot on if you were going to be ready to go for that opener. And I only think that a guy with his injury that would have went in the opener anyway, even if they were close, would be somebody who is like a Zach Martin, Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, and like a veteran player who they're just like, hey, he doesn't need to take a bunch of the reps. We already know he's an elite player, whatever. I think that they feel more comfortable with the Nate Thomas thing, just because that's who you've been going with the last few weeks. You want to have that group together, getting as many reps as possible. That's my feeling for week 1 and possibly week 2, but I don't think Guyton is that far away from returning.
Would make sense almost in week 2 to just do that. I'm not chalking up week 1 as a loss, because I don't know. I think
sounds like you are.
I think a lot of people are crazy if they think the Eagles are just world beaters. I'm not taking away the fact they won the championship, but I think we all can kind of see that the NFC is got a few good teams, and then pretty wide open there. So I don't know, but given that it's a short week, like rushing someone doesn't make sense. Especially it's not like Tyler Guyton's earned. Like, how much better is Tyler Guyton going to be than Nate Thomas as it is? We don't even know.
Minimal practice at most, too.
Yeah,
so
and not there. Fully healthy either. And then on top of that, like you said, KT, it's people forget. Just because it's the first game on Thursday, it's still kind of a short week, unconventional. And then if you save them to week 2, you get that little mini bye type situation where even more time for the second game.
Yeah, getting ready for Abdul Carter in week 2. Kind of doesn't stop.
But I'll also say this: if Nate Thomas is solid, I don't know why you'd move away from that. I would use that to buy Tyler Guyton as much time as possible. Maybe he doesn't go back to week 4 or something like that. But if Nate Thomas looks all right, why would you be trying to force in a guy coming back from a knee injury that, let's be honest, you initially thought was a season-ending one? Give him as much time as possible. I would only think that you try and bring him back week 2 if the Nate Thomas experiment just is awful and you're like, all right, well, we can't be going with this. But I don't think it will be. I think Nate's going to be okay.
I noticed on your article, and I don't want to spoil too much of your article, but you did have a lot of offensive linemen carrying more than usual.
Yeah.
Do you think that one of those names could not make it. The name that stuck out to me would be maybe Cornelius, maybe. Unless they really like him.
I went with him because he's he was a draft pick, and I could see them wanting to almost him be Nate Thomas of a year ago, where you're like, you want to stick around with him. You don't expect him to really do anything here this season. I think they probably end up going to 10 there. I kept 11. I probably went too much there. I guess you could use one of those spots if you wanted to keep Phil Maffa. Well, on the defensive side, the one that came down to me is really that last DB spot for me is Keemon Hall or Israel Mukwamu. So I guess you could potentially keep both of them there if you want to go one less on the offensive line. I just think that this is the best depth the Cowboys offensive line has had in probably 3 or 4 years. So try and keep as much of those guys as possible. Also, when I think of, no offense to the running backs and DBs, but I just think you can find those out there. I don't see very many offensive linemen that you're like, oh, let's go grab this guy off this roster. Tactically, or it tends to be when you have good offensive linemen, or at least ones that you think have upside that can play on Sundays. There's just not enough of them to go around in the league. You're not letting them go. So that's a little bit why I also leaned a little bit heavier there. It's like defensive tackles, like there's just generally not going to be very good defensive tackles available. You can find a diamond in the rough wide receiver, running back, corner, when let go by another team. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's more likely than an offensive lineman or a defensive tackle.
No, for sure. Where are we at on health on Kalen Carson? And then, looking at the secondary in general, when you said Mukwamu a minute ago, that's the guy who I perceive as Cowboys fans have always thought really highly of him, and still do, even though you're like, well, he's always on the fringe to make the roster. It's not like he's played a ton, but I always think the Cowboys fans might think higher of him than what his actual value to them really is.
Yeah, it could be because, he's not really great at any position, but he can play a bunch of different positions. So I get why people would want him on the roster because he could help you in a bind at several different spots if someone was to go down. But I don't know that he's done enough that you're like, oh, well, he has to be on the roster, And then in terms of Carson, I have no update on his injury. So he could be a guy that doesn't make the roster because of that. They might just part ways and say, hey, this thing didn't just work out. But I have him on mine just because of the fact that they obviously liked enough of him to start him early last season. And he's only in his second year. So maybe he is an IR guy. But I don't expect anything from him early in the season.
Yeah, I think Mukwamu also just has a lot of those physical traits. When you look at him, you think that's the kind of cornerback you make in a video game, just physically. And so I think that's part of the reason why it's hard to let that go a little bit.
What a turn that would be for Carson, though, too. Thought really highly of him last year. If you had told me that Andrew Booth, last year, week 12, whatever, you told me, oh, Andrew Booth's definitely going to be on the squad next year, I would have been like, come on.
Yeah.
No way. What's happened?
Final preseason game, he's not even playing. No, we're good. We've seen enough, guys. Put him on ice.
No way. That guy's going to be here. And it's like, okay, well, Diggs gets hurt, and there's lots going on. Trayvon Diggs says on his documentary, the big documentary that everyone's talking about.
Everybody.
The Comeback on YouTube, Trayvon Diggs. But he says his goal is to be back by week 2 or 3. Is he... Okay, first of all, when he says that, are there Cowboys trainers over there just kind of rolling their eyes like, no? I feel like Trayvon Diggs' stock inside the building is so low right now in terms of how much sway he has. I could be wrong, but that's definitely my perception. And I just wonder if that's something we should take seriously or not.
Well, so it was interesting because when he was leaving the stadium Friday night, he was walking with Micah, and myself and another reporter were trying to stop Micah to get him to talk. And Trayvon stepped in to speak for Micah. And it's not like Trayvon likes talking to reporters.
Sure.
And I just really got the sense he answered a couple questions about Micah, but then it turned into him talking about his own injury. We started asking questions about where he's at and that. And you could tell he was very optimistic about where he's at. And then for only a couple of days later for it to be announced that he passed his physical. He's now on the 53. He's no longer on the PUP. Those are great signs. Those are things the team's going to just to do. So, and I will say the last couple of times I saw him doing stuff on the side in Oxnard, I thought he was moving really well. And so it's testament to him, the work he's put in, but also it's a testament to him and the human being that he is, a very gifted athlete, and he has recovered very well from a procedure that, when it happened, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that maybe he's not back till like middle of the season. Maybe he misses 6-7 games, kind of like on more similar to DeMar Van Overshown's timeline. And I certainly wouldn't have thought back in April that he would be ready to return quicker than Savon Ravel. And that obviously is the case. So I don't think it'll be week 1 and maybe not week 2, but you do this move so that he doesn't have to miss the first 4 games. So that would say that, okay, you probably think he'll come back at some point in the first 4, but also you can do this because he can be just trending in a really good direction. And you don't want to put that on him of like, well, you're on PUP, you're missing the first 4 games. Like everything's going in good direction. There's been multiple times in the last few weeks where I've seen him and Stephen Jones talking to each other, seems to be like they were enjoying their company, which I wouldn't have thought would have been happening about a month ago. And so it seems like everything's trending in the right direction for him to be back, maybe week 3, maybe week 4, maybe week 5. But even if it is week 5, that's sooner than I thought.
I don't know where you were on this side, but I was thinking like week 6, week 7. I was thinking almost like after the bye, and maybe I was exaggerating, but that's where my head was. But again, it's not like a lot of great things have been said about Trayvon publicly. So I'm glad you're saying that, John. He's moving well. That's what he said in his video. I think he's moving well. But did that seem early to you, Saad? Week 2 or 3?
I definitely was around the same timeline of him at least starting the season on IR and, or PUP or something like that. But the way Schottenheimer even spoke about him just yesterday on the conference call or on Saturday's conference call, I thought that was interesting because it was very optimistic, and we're still 3-4 days away from having to make that decision and less than 2 weeks away from the season. So you could have taken a more cautious approach and said, yeah, we like where it's going, but we'll see what happens. But Schottenheimer came out and was pretty transparent in saying that, yeah, we do think he's going to be on the 53. Of course, that does not mean that he's going to play week 1. That just means he's not going to miss at least 4 weeks. But still, I thought that tone was interesting to me also for the same reason as UKT, where just seeing somebody in the organization having a favorable view of Trayvon is kind of a step in the right direction right now.
No doubt. I mean, I was talking about this with someone the other day, and there's, just the whole look ahead. And it's like, yeah, sure. It doesn't feel like he's going to be here after this year. I mean, it would benefit the Cowboys in so many ways if he is on the team next year. The idea of moving on from him still creates, even though it's a contract that you can get out of a little bit, it does still create a little bit of dead money. Like it does still put you, in a position where you're not getting all you can get. Like, dude, it benefits everyone for him to play really well. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but it's something that I almost think people have maybe forgotten in this weird off season. And honestly, the first week of training camp where Trayvon was run over. Okay. He was run over, whether he deserved it or not. That's up to you to decide. And then he's used as kind of a bit of the Micah versus Jerry sideshow as well. I mean, I think that calculated move by Micah, and maybe Micah's team or whatever, but I think doing that joint interview, I think that really made Jerry mad too. And this might just be the perfect segue to where we're going.
Yeah, but KT, I think another thing for me with Trayvon, I was in that camp that I still kind of am, maybe not as strongly think that this is Trayvon's last year in Dallas, but a lot of that was contingent on Deron Bland and him getting an extension. Now, if Deron Bland had already got an extension right now, I would say 99% I think this is Trayvon's last year in Dallas. Now, Deron hasn't, and if Deron balls out this year and he hits the open market and there's a bidding war, they don't franchise tag him, whatever, I think that's where, again, it gets interesting. If Trayvon has a good year, Deron Bland does as well, and you don't want to pay both of them, then you let Deron go and Trayvon is your corner. I think a lot of it was just contingent on what's going to happen with Deron Bland's contract.
Yeah, no, and I think that's, I was hoping to see maybe some action on that since we're messing around and not going to get the Micah thing done. Let's transition to Micah. Micah, geez, we can work in reverse. We can go from the beginning. Thought it was wild that Jerry jumped on Michael Irvin's YouTube thing and talked about all of that. I was sitting there watching the part about Micah. and kind of going, man, I feel like we're getting close to violating league rules. I'm not sure how close we are to this, but it does feel wrong for Jerry to be saying, hey, man, why don't you get Micah and bring him on down to the office? Like, it feels wrong. Then you get Micah, and him on the training table was just an image. But, John, I'm sure you've got thoughts on that. Was that blown out of proportion? Was that real? What's going on there?
Hold on. Let's just make sure, and for clarity and fairness, that we say that Micah was not on that table all game. Okay. It was just like maybe 6-7 minutes. It was not the entire game. I mean, let's make sure that we tell the whole story here, because I know some people out there probably thought he was just laying there all game long. That's not the case. No, just such a bad look. It's just, I mean, it's not great. I thought it was funny, I'm waiting for him to arrive and he's eating nachos, it couldn't look less like a player getting ready for a game, Also, like, the thing that I kept thinking, I'm just like, where did these nachos come from? I mean, you just came from your card. Are these in your card? You grab these at 7-Eleven? Like, just, I don't know if you've never been to AT&T Stadium, like where the players are dropped off, whether it's, they drive themselves or they come on the team bus. It's not like they go past concession stands. It's underground. So anyway, and then just, it's not like, even before he was laying on the table, he just, doesn't look very interested. He's the only player that's not wearing his jersey, which is a thing that Schottenheimer had said earlier in camp, that he wants, all the guys, that even when they're not practicing, to be wearing their jerseys, which then led to some training camp practices where Micah was only he was wearing it or he wasn't wearing it. And then there was another time where he just kind of had it half on or half off. And that's always been, like, body language has never been great with Micah Parsons, even when things are going well. He just does not have the best body language. And so him laying on the table, I just was like, I don't know. It's, I get it. He doesn't want to be there because of this contract situation, but I don't know that it's a great look for the rest of the team, because there are obviously guys that are out there playing for their NFL futures and hoping to make rosters and stuff like that. So there's a part of it where, you think that it looks better by you being there. And there's the other part where you're like, you know what, it might actually look better if you just didn't show up, as opposed to showing up and then doing some stuff like that. It kind of almost makes it look worse.
Yeah, and when it comes to negotiation, I think it adds another layer to it, because so far from March onward, so much of this negotiation has been Jerry Jones versus David Mulugheta, the agent. And I think with everything John talked about, with the way Micah was in training camp, and then now this too, I think it's evolving a little bit into Jerry Jones versus Micah Parsons now, because I can't imagine Jerry is thrilled seeing Micah handle himself the way he is after he's had all these talks about leadership and this and that. For him to do that, the negotiation was about the agent, but I do think a little bit Jerry might be getting irked now, and the Cowboys as a whole might be getting irked, and it might be becoming more about Micah than just about not wanting to get the agent involved in a negotiation and things like that.
And for, people that have probably heard it and maybe don't understand it, but he is under contract for the rest of this season, and they could franchise tag him next season and the season after that. And so the contract that Micah eventually, I believe, is going to get will be something that probably averages around $45 million per season. Right now, he's making around 23, 24 for this season. The franchise tag number for next year, for this year, for a D end, is around kind of what he's making this year, and then it goes up to around 26, 27. So it's nowhere close to 45, was basically be what he's, and then even the year after that, if it goes up, it's not going to be north of maybe 30. So you're not getting close to what your contract would be. So that's why Micah clearly doesn't want to be franchise tagged. But to Saad's point is that you keep doing this. Jerry Jones has shown with the Jimmy Johnson thing how long he can hold a grudge. And that could be the thing where he goes to, where he's just like, all right, well, then don't play then. And then you're still under contract with us. You're not going anywhere. So your prime years, you're just not going to play football? All right, I bet you do. You don't want it to get that ugly, but it certainly could.
Yeah.
And these, again, and also, by the way, these are things that I don't necessarily see happening if it's Stephen Jones running the show. For as much as, people have been critical of him, I don't see these things happening. But Jerry is a different cat. And that's why Jerry will be the one that, gets this thing finalized. There won't be any, all right, Jerry's too worked up about this, let somebody else step in. That's not happening. This will not get done without Jerry Jones's blessing. So if he's frustrated with this to a level of where he's like, well, if he's going to act like that, why am I even going to pay him this kind of money? And then also there's the flip side of it is like, obviously he's an elite pass rusher, so he's always going to have interest. But the more you keep doing stuff like this, the more it drags out, the more I would feel like probably it would drive other teams away. Not to say that they wouldn't have any interest, but drive them away from being like, I don't know if I'm going to be giving up 2 ones for, and then now we're going to have to pay. And then who knows what kind of issues we might have to deal with. So there is a little bit of both sides of this, as opposed to when you are like the way CeeDee Lamb handled it, you're just not around. But when you're doing things like out on the sideline and stuff like that, I could see it having a negative effect.
Yeah, and also the other thing is that I think when it comes to Micah and the way that he's kind of presenting himself, that's one thing. And then Jerry, the way that he kind of goes about this, we've talked about this with like Jerryisms, his way of going about things. And one thing he does is when he catches an analogy, he drives it into the ground for a little bit. So, a while back it was the pie. Earlier this offseason it was the mommy, daddy, and kid, which he still refers to a little bit. But, recently with especially with Stephen A. Smith and Michael Irvin as well, both in both recent appearances, Jerry is starting to make it very clear that they have 3 years of control. Like it was like a said thing earlier in the offseason where Jerry wasn't outright saying it, but now it's getting to a point where Jerry is straight up with Stephen A. Smith in the sit down. He straight up basically said what John just said about bet you won't sit out for 3 straight years.
Yeah.
So I'm not really concerned about that. So he's going to that direction now where he's, and I think we're going to hear that a lot more from Jerry because that's kind of his new thing he settled on now.
I thought Jerry on with Michael Irvin was the equivalent to Micah on the Undertaker podcast. And I realize how stupid that sounds, but it did feel like that was the point where some things are going to be said that does escalate things more than they need to be. And we've said this pretty much during every conversation we've had about this. We all think it's going to get done. And we all have talked about it. For me, I've got Labor Day circled. I just feel like, right around then we're going to get this thing done. But I couldn't help but think about episode 4 of the Netflix documentary and the Emmett holdout, and just Emmett's leverage was way easier to come to fruition than I think Micah's. If Sam Williams looks horrible or whatever, okay, well, I don't know if that's going to change anything. Having a rookie running back go out there and then drop the pass and fumble and just not be very good, and then have a crazy person like Charles Haley throw a helmet at Jerry. Yeah, that's a good way to get a deal done. Like, I don't think that's going to happen here. I don't think it's going to be like, okay, Micah didn't play. Oh, it's going to be noticeable, but how much noticeable,
the one I've been saying, KT, is he doesn't play in the opener. They win the game. And then Jerry does one of those Zeke Who type things after the game.
Oh, reverse.
Yeah. So.
Well, at this point, okay.
I don't really see him winning the game with Micah, let alone without him. So, everything I just said seems very unrealistic. But
I'm not gonna pick
it is
them,
the Cowboys. Wild things happen.
Yeah, no one knows that. Like the Eagles, they come out in week 1 and just be ready? Like we don't know. We don't really don't know. Like everything on that. Like
10 straight tush pushes. There's 5 yards, and they're just eating up. That eats up the entire first quarter. Can't stop the run.
Mozzie's just getting pushed back. The thing that in that interview that stuck to me though was the word he said Dak set the precedent. How you handle this?
No, that's how you handle it.
I'm
For
like,
Dak is how you handle it. I don't know if that's how the Cowboys should be taking it. That's how you handle it.
I was like, okay,
yeah, Dak played that thing great.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, okay. If Dak set the precedent, then Micah actually should. But I don't know. Like Micah can play. Yeah, Micah's great. We're just sitting here talking about finding space for an extra defensive end on our roster right now. I'm just sitting here going, man, let's really take some calls and let's function like an organization. And let's think about what we actually could get for him. Yes, he's great. But let's really think about it. And I just don't know that
How does it change though right now to in January, February? Like I don't think the offer will be that different. I don't think it's like you got to trade him right now because you can get 2 1s and 2 2s. And if you wait till the end of the season, then you'll probably still get the 2 1s and whatever else is being offered right now. And so at least you get to let the season play out. You get to play some cards, see what happens before you make that decision. Whereas right now, you do that deal, now you have draft picks that don't do anything to help the team until April,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is do you have faith that they are behind the scenes turning over every stone possible and looking at every trade offer seriously?
I don't, but I also think that Jerry's probably so dug in, going back to our points earlier, that there's a part of him, as bad as this sounds from a GM standpoint, is probably like, if I trade him, yeah, I get the picks, but then he's also happy because he gets what he wants. He's put out a trade request. He says he wants out of here. Like, why should I make him happy? He's angering me. Why should I make him happy? And everything I just said is not great business in the NFL, but you can't rule it out with Jerry Jones. When you've pissed him off, I mean, who knows how long it could, who knows how long it could last. But also with Jerry Jones, he says these things. Who knows? Maybe there's another card to be played in the next week or two that makes it even worse. And a day after that, whatever card to play where everyone thinks that it's like, wow, there is no turning back from that. I can't believe he says that. He calls David Mulligetta. Like, I mean, all of that is in play with Jerry Jones. Like, there is no, like, right when you think, like, you're just like, well, it's done now for sure. You can't 100% rule out anything with him.
Yeah, I was thinking, I put out a thing on Twitter the other day, and I know you've done an article on this, so it's like I'm not doing anything no one's done, but 2 first-round picks and a starting offensive tackle. I'm just saying, there's a team that I follow from the North, and they're trying to figure out, like, they've got 2 starting caliber offensive tackles right now, and there's one they'd probably like to move. They might be one of the teams that have called about Micah, and I'm sitting there going, you know what? You don't have to pay Micah that much. You get your 2 first-round draft picks, and then you do kind of shore up the offensive tackle position that's still a question mark, and they already ran over Terrence Steele, so you're going to need to get an offensive tackle at some point anyways.
I mean, just
they feel about him.
You like, saying that on top of just saying right before it about the Netflix documentary, just think about how wild all of that is. Sending him to the team that has been the reason the last 3 best Cowboys teams, best chance to win a Super Bowl, that team has stood in their way. That's at the end. That's episode 8. But everything you also said gets you back to around episode 2 or 3. How even Jerry Rice says trading Charles Haley was the wrong thing to do because you're sending him there. So they're sending Micah Parsons over to this team that has stood in their way, who, let's be honest, even without Micah Parsons, I think the Packers are one of the best run teams. I expect them to be in the mix for really a long time. So even without Micah Parsons, and then now all of a sudden you possibly give him the piece that puts them over the top, and now they're the best team in the NFC. Like, all of that would just be wild.
Take the Packers out of it. Make it the Patriots. Like, just
that seems more likely to me.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, take the Packers out of it. I get what you're saying, and I brought up the Packers for a reason because they do have, what appears to be they have 3 starting caliber offensive tackles. Now, they make all of their offensive tackles play guard, some too. It is fantasy football for them.
If you're Micah Parsons, what's the last team you want to go to?
Jags or Colts?
AFC.
I'll be honest with you. The Jags were the first team that popped in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colts for sure. Jags might have a chance, though. I think the Browns of Myles Garrett, he could have a little fun there. But
Colts is a good one, too.
Colts is good.
Yeah,
God,
Cleveland wouldn't be that far away from where he grew up, so I don't think you can put
Tennessee
them on the same level as Jacksonville.
How about Tennessee?
I still think at least you're in Nashville. It's at least
the
workable.
AFC South.
Yeah, it's at least workable, but Jacksonville, I think you would have that one would be the
AFC South is a beating to watch. I am not like that's wait, Thursday night we're running an AFC South game out there. What is Amazon doing? I do want to keep going on this for a second. I don't want to just spend a ton of time on it. And I want to be honest with you guys. I've not finished the documentary, the Netflix documentary. The comeback of Trayvon Diggs. I've seen every episode. Beautiful. But the Netflix.
How's the lighting?
Not good. Yeah, could have spent a little more on that, but he had to pay the fines. So it was tough, I cut the budget somewhere. I'm only through 6 episodes and I'm slow burning it. Because that's how I like to watch shows as a person. I can't stand to binge. I don't like people getting ahead of me. It just bothers me. But I'm also kind of working it on the radio show I'm on, the Ben and Skin Show, 97.1 The Eagle, 3-6 p.m. Shameless plug. Y'all have seen it all, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, don't talk about episode 7 or 8.
Okay.
I did not know the Troy Aikman racism allegations before Super Bowl 30. I had not known, and I was 7 at the time, so I probably shouldn't have known. That one was wild to me. And then, like, everyone loves Barry Switzer except Troy. I knew Troy had problems with the way Barry Switzer ran the team, but the way it's framed in this, it makes Troy look like a bad guy. And it makes Troy go up to that peg that Jimmy and Jerry on, because they look like bad guys in this whole thing. It's kind of wild. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and their take on this is a fluff piece for Jerry. Dude, I think Jerry looks effing awful in this. I think he looks horrible in this whole thing.
All right. Well, if you can't walk me down this path and say I can't talk about 8.
Okay, fine.
Well, I mean, you have to know that eventually they're going to be talking about what he had to say about the anthem, what he had to say about standing on the school steps of that Arkansas school when he was a kid and stuff like that. I mean, don't you think that that's going to take up a decent amount of this? It's 30 seconds.
No, it's not, because they spent 45 seconds on the White House.
I wouldn't say it's a 100% Jerry fluff piece, but it is certainly skewed into how his truth. He is telling his truth a lot more in there than maybe some other. And it does make me wonder, like, how many, when some of those players that, I mean, let's be honest, everybody in this thing is paid to do this. I mean, that's how Netflix gets all of this stuff done. I mean, and they're paid very well, but it does make me wonder what some of these players think when they see the final product, what Troy thinks of it, what Jimmy thinks of it. I could see them not being pleased with it. I think Jerry is, he has said as much. I think if he really didn't like it, I don't think he would be making sure that the premiere is in Hollywood, and that he would probably kind of be like, yeah, I'm in it. They paid me whatever, $50 million, but I'm, whatever. He's seems all about it. So it would not surprise me if there's little things taken out here and there. Yeah, for sure.
Which I don't know. Like, I've seen, like, I get it. There's a bunch of people who just don't want to see it. Don't want to go through and live, like, either they're too close to the Cowboys or they're just a fan and they're frustrated with them that they're like, I can't even get it. I actually think it's done pretty well. Like, I've enjoyed it a lot. I'm interested in Kent because Kent's a big movie guy, and like, Kent has actually made documentaries for the Cowboys, and they have not gotten near the shine that this has. So Kent might be too close to the sun. I'm interested to see what he thinks about it.
But they also do things to make it sound. They also do things that are like make things sound more dramatic and better than what they really were. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you didn't take it this way. Maybe you did. I'm just speaking for myself here, so everybody else can feel however they want about it. I mean, I just feel like early on it's sold up like just this like rags to riches. Got the Dallas Cowboys. You had $800,000 to use on a well in like mid 80s. That's like over $2 million today. Like, who has that to just throw? And then of course you got to have the luck to then hit the $100 million well. But then to sit there and say that, like, and I hit that well, and I said, you just bought the Dallas Cowboys. No, you didn't, because when you hit that well, the Cowboys weren't even for sale at that time. So there's just like little things like that where it's like, it sounds good. It's like, bam. And he says, and then it goes right into music and all that, and all of that is great. But it's just like, there's also a lot of like kind of, doing it for the effect, which is what you do when you're making a documentary like that. So I'm not taking anything away from it. I'm just saying that there are some things, we're not going to act like this is just a absolutely 100% everything is just, hey, we're just telling it like, I mean, there's going to be some things. I'm sure there was things that were admitted that, might never see the light of day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was also thinking, like, I'd love to see Andy Samberg and his friends do a mockumentary of this, because I do think there's some cartoonish elements to this entire thing. Just the Old West graphics and scenery, and the music's a little much. Like, the music's great in some parts. It's also a little much in some parts.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been like, man,
like how,
good. Go ahead.
I was like how they're talking about the talk radio while Jerry bought the team, and they're showing like the musers, and they haven't even been on the air for 5 years after that.
89. Yeah. It's like, what the hell? Also, I really loved, okay, so Jimmy Johnson, seen as, for better or for worse, seen as one of the great coaches of our time on Earth, right? Seen as that. Dude, the stuff that's in the documentary, like, him calling in to Randy Galloway and saying we're going to win, him getting flummoxed in 1994 when they go 0-2, and he's about to throw the team under the bus. He's about to say, I thought our team was, and he goes, oh boy. in a press conference on a podium, dude, he
Yeah.
would have been memed so fast. That's the equivalent to Adam Gase, chasing a taco, or Jim Tom Sula all sweaty in his opening press conference. Jimmy Johnson was pulling off stuff like that, and I was sitting there going, I thought he was like a legend, and there's just like, I was like, maybe he was not wired for that either.
Talk about the Jacksonville Jaguar job. I mean, like how that came out of nowhere. You're just like, you're going to leave this to go to the Jags as an expansion team that are bringing out this teal color that like of the Hornets and these other Florida Marlins of the 90s. Like, we are not going to act like, now Tom Coughlin did great with the Jags when he took over. I mean, heck, the Panthers, same thing. But when those were coming into the league, nobody was thinking like, oh, you can turn this thing into a juggernaut in like 2 years or something. That was not like, so to even be thinking of something like that coming out was pretty wild to me. But in terms of the Andy Samberg thing you said, just with them in the off-road vehicle with rifles, the helicopter, oh my God, it'd be so easy to make all kinds of, jokes off of this. Yeah. What was the other thing you said? You had me thinking about something else when you said that. You said about Jimmy. There was something else in there too that.
Well, just him farting around at the podium and kind of getting exposed, not handling the PR very well.
Oh, I know what it was. The pre-Super Bowl interview with Costas.
Oh my God!
And the stuff that Jerry and Jimmy were saying back and forth to each other, like how much that would be clipped up, and just like, and hey, and again, I'm sorry, but I just have to bring this in there because I watched all of it, so I'm just telling you it doesn't show up. But I don't know if you've noticed when Switzer gets that trophy, it is an iconic moment for, I don't know if the Cowboys fans feel this, but for outsiders like myself watching it. One of my most memorable moments of watching the 90s Cowboys as a kid was how awkward that trophy presentation was, where Jerry's pulling it away from Barry Switzer. In this document, like Jerry has it, but they cut right before it like that. So that's not even in this thing. Yeah. And that was always so like, oh my God, like you guys just hit the mountaintop. Like, I can't believe that this is happening. He's trying to like hand it to the players and stuff. It's one of the most awkward like moments in a big situation like that, I mean, hundreds of millions of people are watching.
Yeah.
Kent, do you have some thoughts here? I know you do.
One of the big things that stuck out to me was just how much this confirms, in my opinion, that Jimmy was the dude. Like, he was that good. There's always been debate, I guess, for the last 30 years. How much of it was Jerry? How much of it was Jimmy? This seems to confirm that Jimmy really was that good of a coach. A little less debating than you even got with the Patriots series that they released. How much is Belichick? How much of it is Brady? To me, it's very clear after watching this that Jimmy was just that good of a coach.
And that part is funny to me that you got that you took that away from that. Because I think if it's told a little bit more on a 50-50, I think it's even crazier that you would think it's on that level. I think they even did enough to, because throughout it, again, sorry, I have to do this, GKT, but the way he's circling back at the very end and then now times talking at the ranch when they're there for Thanksgiving about how the Herschel Walker taking the credit still bothers Jerry to this day or whatever. And everybody that reported on it at that time was like, yeah, it was totally Jimmy doing that. Like Jerry didn't even know that was going on. If you tell that documentary with a slant of how there's just one interview coming after another, and it can be quick, like 10 seconds. It could be like Dave Wan said, this other, like all these other coaches just saying, yeah, that was all Jimmy. Yeah, that was Jimmy. Of course, we all know it was Jimmy. That was Jimmy. Everybody knows it was Jimmy. It was Jimmy. Like, it totally would take that out there. But I mean, you don't even need a documentary. Just the 29 years that have gone by do a lot to do that too. But it is funny that you say that because I believe it does. I agree with you. I think it shows that as well. But I also think that it was kind of polished up a little bit so it doesn't look nearly as bad as it probably was.
And I know this was framed as like, this is going to be the Last Dance series,
100%.
And how this is just not going to have even a tenth of the impact that the Last Dance documentary had. The Last Dance, the entire collectibles industry exploded after that documentary came out. Maybe it's because everybody was at home, but I think them releasing all the episodes at once was probably a mistake. Maybe they could have strung this along with one a week here until the season starts, something like that, keep the interest. But it seems to have about 2 days of people are talking about it on Twitter and talk radio, and now it's just Netflix kind of throwing it at us again, trying to keep us engaged with it. But yeah,
isn't it wild though, Kent, that both of those were basically going on at the same time though? Like, what a time, man! But
if they had rolled this out a year after The Last Dance, I feel like it would have had more of an impact. But I feel like everybody's trying to trying to kind of do this.
It makes me wonder, though, like, what are they going to do? Like, what will come up, 10, 15, 20 years from now? Because to me, I watched The Last Dance. I'm a big fan of the basketball shoes that were out in the 90s, and I love that. I've been arguing this forever, and I love how they just keep bringing them back. That's how good they were. People can't even think of new ideas. They go back to what was banging in the 90s, like all these Jordans. And obviously ESPN is a big one for me, like 90s ESPN. Like, I loved it. Obviously, it's not the same ESPN today. But there's just like a lot of things like that make me constantly think like, okay, so what will be that thing? And so I think probably the Patriots will be one. Maybe Kobe Bryant, some stuff like that. But I just don't see a lot of interest in a lot of other things, down the line that we'll have, because you got to have the drama too. Because what's great about The Last Dance and what's great about this Cowboys, the gambler one, is that both of them leave you with, man, there was still meat on the bone there. Like, if they can just make this work, man, there's probably more championships there. Like, yeah, maybe Jordan could have won another one if him and Jerry Krause, everybody could have got along. If Jimmy and Jerry man, how many more champions? So you got to have that element too, to where, like, it can't just be this finite. Like, that's why I'm saying the Patriots could potentially be one, because you have Tom leaving and then he wins another Super Bowl. So you're like, man, what if he does stay in New England? Maybe he does get him another way. But if you don't have that element, I'm not really that interested, because I'm like, no, I know what the ending was. I saw it. Like, there's no, like, really questioning it, with a lot of like the current Oklahoma City Thunder. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just not like, it's got to be something, maybe the Luka one is, depending on how things pan out with Cooper and then how things pan out with Luka in LA, maybe that's one,
Yeah.
Yeah, the favorite thing I did on the Switzer doc that I did one on Switzer coming in after Jimmy and winning that championship and kind of his little tenure there. We touched on the Jimmy exit and that was produced by the team. So they're not, I guess, willing to go all the way down that road, but we could touch on it. It was like the first segment or two of my documentary. And I just remember Barry talking about that and Jerry calling him and saying, hey, do you want to be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys? And Barry goes, I didn't know the job was open. And he was like, stand by, Jerry said. So he had called Barry days before ever firing Jimmy just to see if he was willing to be the coach. And then Jerry ends up calling him right after firing Jimmy, and Barry accepts the job immediately. And my favorite part of the doc is him talking about driving down to Dallas. He had just bought a new car. He drove down to Dallas, and it was like, I had no idea what the F I was doing, like what I was getting myself into. I'd never coached in the pros. Here's a team that's just won multiple championships. They expect to win more championships. He was just way in over his head. And then it cuts to the press conference. And that first press conference with Barry was just so off the rails. And you could see it on Jerry's face, like, oh my God, have I made a huge mistake here? Because Barry just completely took over the press conference and was, cutting up and cussing and making all these jokes. And at the end, Barry was like, was that okay, Jerry? I'm a little nervous. And Jerry's just like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And just the risk that Jerry took there, the hiring him basically before even firing somebody else, just like he did with Parcells and Campo. It's almost the exact same thing of he already had Parcells in the bag before he even decided to fire Dave Campo. Didn't tell anyone that they were on a coaching search, anything like that. Met with them in secret on the runway with his private jet and all that. Check out my Parcells doc, by the way, as well. But it's just the echoes of those two things really rang true for me in this documentary.
So you saying that made me think about when I was watching it as well. And then, being at the premiere and, Michael and Emmett talked, and there's been this big thing from the players at that time talking about how close they were and how it was a family and that's why they won. And they were there and I wasn't. So why would you care what I say? Yeah. But what you just said just makes me feel like this even more. Like how wheels off that was and everything. All that stuff's great.
Remember Michael Irvin throwing the trash can through at the media when they tried to get in there?
Through the curtains.
All that stuff's secondary to me. Give me the most talent and everybody will figure it out. When you're winning, you'll become a family. Just give me the most talent. Give me a loaded roster like they had at that time, especially at that time, because those times were not like now. There's no one's going in the Super Bowl nowadays with these double-digit favorites and stuff like that. Like the Super Bowl at that time was Cowboys versus Niners. You knew that they were probably whoever won that game was very, very likely to win the Super Bowl. There's more parity now. You give me a loaded roster like that, there can be problems off the field. There can be problems in the front office. There can be problems amongst the coaching staff. You give me that and let me figure that out, because the talent in the end is the thing that decides these things more often than not in professional sports.
And the
Yeah, and the
difference,
Patriots, the Patriots are a similar thing to that too. I mean, there was a lot of dysfunction there towards the end, but they were still winning Super Bowls when they had dysfunctional stuff with Belichick and Brady and with Randy Moss towards the end of his tenure and stuff. So I absolutely agree with that.
Now, you do need the key pieces. You need the key pieces. They had Troy, they had Emmett, they had Michael. Obviously, you needed to make a move here or there. They got Charles and stuff like that. So you got to have. You can't just have. This team had the 3 best wide receivers, and then it's got just a below average quarterback throwing to them, and the defense is awful. Like, okay, that's not going to work. We get that, but I'm saying when you have the talent spread out all over that team the way they did, it's going to be hard not to win big.
Yeah, the difference is between Barry and Jimmy is Barry came in knowing that this was the NFL. And he said, these are professional athletes. They need to act like professionals. They know the position they're in. Whereas Jimmy came in and he treated the Cowboys like they were freshmen at the University of Miami. He came in with the exact mentality he had in college. And I guess that's what that team needed. But Barry came in and was just like, I just want everyone to be happy. I want to be cool. I want people to like me. Yeah.
You got to think of the times. Jimmy's taken over basically what is going to be an expansion team. Yeah. They win one game. They're trading Herschel Walker. They're trying to build up picks. They're trying to ground up. Barry takes over. They've already won 2 Super Bowls. They're at the top. So you don't want to go in there and start rattling cages and talking about how you're going to be this hard ass. And they're like, shut up, dude. We've already just won the last 2 Super Bowls. We don't care what you have to say. We got the keys. We're going to drive the car. Sit back, old man. Enjoy the ride. Like, you can't be that way with that team after they won.
It's just crazy, the juxtaposition between those 2 guys, and also how Barry did, at least what he told us, that he decided to walk away. How Jerry actually wanted him back. Wanted him to remain the coach, I guess probably through the Irvin Aikman run, and Barry was like, I'm good. I'm out of here.
How crazy is that?
I've had enough.
Yeah.
How crazy is it, though, with just how different these 3 people are? And just, again, because it's been 29 years and there's a whole generation of Cowboys fans that would do anything for a Super Bowl, but just imagine those times. None of the 2 gentlemen that we're talking about are like Tom Landry. Tom Landry won a Super Bowl. Jimmy's different than Tom Landry, wins a Super Bowl. Barry Switzer, different from all of them, wins the Super Bowl. Imagine the first 3 coaches the franchise had, all won Super Bowls. There had to be a point in time, if you take yourself back there, where you did feel like, it doesn't matter. We'll figure this thing out. We're the Cowboys. We're going to win. There's no question that Jerry Jones has thought that within that first 5 or 6 years of him owning the team. That's why a lot of that stuff happened, because he was just like, yeah, I don't care. We'll figure it out. I'll coach the team if we have to for a year or 2 until we find the next coach. Like, if you take yourself back to those times, and I get it, because just think about how people would be like, yeah, well, I don't know. I could see how you move on from Tom. They were starting to fall off. Fall off, like not go to Super Bowl for 29 years? No. Oh, it wasn't like, it was like a few seasons? Okay, gotcha. Like, you don't even know how good it was back then, you know? Yeah. That when I think back to those times, if they were like that right now, I could totally see how the egos got to what the egos were.
Yeah. This reminds me a little bit of Schottenheimer does of the Dave Campo move. It really feels like we're a team that is paying our top guys so much money that we really can't go out and build a proper team. So let's hire somebody who can come in here and is likable and can take this beating for a few years till we can get out of this. And a guy who deserves it, too. I think both of those guys were hired because, hey, you know what? They've been here for a long time. They do a good job. They deserve it. So you're our next head coach. You know, it's like the parallels between Campo and Schottenheimer are immense, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, it's been fun to watch. I know like the inaccuracies on a few things bothering people, but like I mean,
nothing to me is at a level that it bothers me though. I want that to be. I want that on the record.
Okay.
There's nothing in there where I'm just like, oh, don't like, because just to give you a comp, like we've talked about before. I would be very critical of it if it was like that, the Brett Favre one.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was, the only thing I'm saying is I just don't think it's on the level of The Last Dance, which is a high bar. I still think it's good. I still think people should watch it. I want that to be clear.
Yeah.
From a production standpoint, I don't like how everything Dallas related has to lean so far into cowboydom.
Dude,
Like how they had him sitting in front of like a mesa, and the cowboy fonts and all that. That always bothers me when it just reinforces that everyone rides horses around Dallas,
Yeah, no, I've always felt that way. They overdo that and have for many years, but
They
It's
always
more of a
will.
Fort
yeah.
Worth thing.
yeah, but just a little bit's fine. But Jerry loves a good Western too, and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's pretty wild. They used to take toy guns into games as well. Man, that's some good footage.
Speaking of that, that made me think of another thing. You want to talk about social media stuff going viral? What about that pep rally when Emmett said they were going to win the Super Bowl? I'm just like
Crazy.
Somebody would have had a camera phone and put that thing on.
All of it like that,
Yeah.
and just like even the parade in this town, just riding in the back of a car seems crazy.
Yeah. What about Tom Landry getting a parade for being the coach?
Blew my mind.
Who's the comp to that? Who have they done? I don't remember Chicago doing that for Phil Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just that part was wild. Also, the part where I was telling Saad this, I would like to know more about, and I always have. I've always been fascinated by, can someone tell me the truth? Unfortunately, the only person that's left, I don't think will ever tell you the full truth, but I would like to know the truth of how it went down on that Austin golf course with Tom Landry and Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
Because for Jerry to say in this doc that it got emotional, like how did it get emotional? Because to me, obviously, I never covered the Cowboys with Tom Landry. I only knew who Tom Landry was from afar. I don't even know if Tom Landry's showing emotion. I can't even imagine him like getting out of control, yelling, or the far opposite side where he's like sobbing in tears. So what do you mean he got emotional? Did he swing on Jerry, or did he just start
I
crying?
think he probably was crying. Yeah.
Sure.
I think it probably just broke his heart, Yeah. I don't think he got angry or anything like that. He's just
But wouldn't that be fun? Jerry comes back. He had makeup on because he had a black eye from Tom Landry just pummeling him. Like, we need more. We need
Landry
more.
was a guy who coached essentially his entire life, And I think when you're so into that, when it's your day to day, every single day of your life, and this is currently the state Jerry's in, when he's president, owner, and general manager, and he will be till the very end. I think once you take that away, you kind of lose your will to be around anymore. You see this with musicians all the time, with actors all the time. It's why Clint Eastwood and Ridley Scott are still directing movies so far into their lives. It's why Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones are still touring. Because I think once Mick Jagger's not the lead singer of the Rolling Stones anymore, he's going to be gone really soon,
So you're saying that you think Tom wanted to keep coaching?
I think Tom would have lived longer, if he had been coaching.
Hey,
certainly.
What about that for your little mockumentary about it, KT?
Oh,
hey,
dude, we can do anything we want with it. Did you see the Bash Brothers doc? We can do anything we want.
Hey, he's the one that takes the Jaguars job. Tom Landry. They're parading him out there.
Here's a question, though.
With whatever that mascot's
Brought him the
name
wishbone.
Is.
Like, what?
Do you think they would have won the Super Bowl with Landry, with Jerry as the owner?
Well, not with the owner. I mean, that's the thing. When I say Jimmy, and I agree with you, Ken, that he deserves the most credit for it. He was also on the personnel side. He had to bring in a lot of that personnel and make it work. So I'm not sitting there saying like anybody could have won with that personnel. No, Jimmy deserves credit for that. And he obviously was a really good coach too. But if it was just because of his coaching, he would have won more with Miami, the Dolphins. I mean, obviously he won a lot in college, but I'm saying like his personnel part of it too is such a big part of, and honestly, I've talked to about with Saad, with Belichick, there's a lot of that too. It's more than just the coaching. He gets credit for a lot of the roster building as well and the construction of these Super Bowl teams. So no, I don't think that it would have been, there's guys that were on that 90s team that, Jimmy could put up with stuff where I don't think Tom would even draft certain guys because he might think like, well, I already got this guy and this guy might not fit with there, where Jimmy was probably like, nah, I'm getting this guy. He's talented, whatever. We're doing this trade. Yeah, I heard all the stuff about Charles Haley pleasuring himself in San Francisco. We can put up with that. We got a good infrastructure. We can deal with that here.
Yeah.
You know, he can rush the passer.
I want to touch on something that, John, I heard you talk about on another podcast.
Don't say touch on something after what John just said.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, get that weird mental image out of my mind first. That you talked about on the Dumb Zone. Shout out the Dumb Zone. You're talking about Jerry being a one-of-one personality. And I think that's so true about how people say, well, even if Jerry stepped down, it's still his family and kids running the team, so not much is going to change. And watching this documentary, Jerry's a one-of-one. Barry's a one-of-one. Parcells is a one-of-one. Jimmy's a one-of-one. And I do think it's going to be different. I agree with you, John, that if Jerry ever steps down or leaves or whatever, that it's going to be different just because it's not Jerry freaking Jones running it.
No, there's no question. That's why I just said Donald Trump's the same way too. A lot of people think that his kids and everything, you can't, they're just, it's hard to follow that person. I would honestly say that I don't think that there's going to be any Steinbrenners that are like George was. And being a person who's from Detroit, there's not even going to be anybody else that's like Henry Ford, the first ones. You know what I'm saying? There's only so, I think it takes them. I'm seeing it right now in Detroit, the Tigers and Red Wings are still owned by the Ilitch family. Well, Mike Ilitch was, a one of one like that too. I think, and this is just, I'm not talking about any of these individuals in particular. I believe about this in life is in a way, it just, you come from a different upbringing because you had different things. Like, I don't know that Jerry Jones's kids can have the same, upbringing as him because they were born into a world that it's not the same exact things, and the same experiences and stuff like that. So that's why I just think that people, you're not going to be exactly like how your parents were. And that's why a lot of people say that Steven this, Steven that, whatever. I don't think we for sure know. I think Steven will still talk to us. He'll be more media friendly than most owners and general managers. And I do think he will start out as the team's owner and general manager. But if things are going poorly, I can see Steven Jones getting to a point where he hires a general manager. I could never see that with Jerry Jones, so little things like that. Plus, there's just been times where many a times, probably more often than not, when I talk to Steven Jones with others after games, things like that, like he can talk to us and not give us anything. Jerry Jones can't talk to us and not give us anything. Steven Jones could have done 45 minutes with Stephen A. Smith. He could have done 45 minutes with Michael Irvin. And maybe there's one little headline here. He kind of said this, I know Steven had regrets about saying, well, Micah's got to want to get paid. We're like, I don't think Jerry ever has regrets about anything he says. He's just like, I said it. I don't care.
That's so true. What you said too about Jerry never cutting off the media, never being done talking.
Yeah.
Whereas Steven's like, all right, guys, one more. I got to get to this meeting. Like Steven is willing to walk away from media that wants to talk to him, and Jerry, he'll stand there all day if people are asking him questions.
One of the fun examples, real quick, Saad, I just was going to say, was at that premiere. Like seeing these Netflix people trying to pull away from us as they're as the things coming on the speaker in the background, like show's about to start, and we're just like, I bet it doesn't start. I bet it doesn't start without Jerry Jones in there. So we're going to keep asking him questions, and you could just tell how even Tad was like trying to tell the Netflix people like he's not going to leave until like whatever. And they finally got him to leave after. We only talked to him for 3 minutes, which is nothing for Jerry, but you could tell how the people organizing were so used to just like the people they deal with want to get out of there. So you're kind of like a buffer to help them get out of there, where he's like, no, I'm good here.
Yeah, there was also a moment in OTAs earlier this year where we were all talking to Steven right inside where the practice fields are, and Steven, like 2 questions into talking about Micah, was like, "Hey, if there's one more question about Micah, like I'm out. I'm not even going to talk anymore." So, of course, then we're just talking about whatever injury recoveries and stuff. But you never hear Jerry even say. I've never heard Jerry say that even when we talked to Jerry for like an hour about the Arkansas stuff after a game, and he's getting emotional. At no point was he like, "Hey, if you ask me one more question about this Arkansas thing, I'm walking." I've never heard him say that. So yeah, there's no topic, sensitive or not, that Jerry is shying away from.
And when he was answering those questions, Saad, it's not like he was sticking to some script that like PR gave him. He was saying some stuff where I'm like, I don't know if this is helping you, Jerry. This might be getting worse actually right now. And then like he even did a walk-off to the walk-off off of that. And so I've always felt like he's never, I can't say in his life, but we'll say in the last 50 years, ever felt like there's anybody that can out-talk him about anything. Like there's just certain things in life that I think a lot of us would be like, yeah, I'm not going to get in too much of an argument with that person. That's their expertise. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
Like, if they push back a little bit, I'm out. Whereas Jerry's like, oh, game on. All right, what do you want to talk about here? And you're just like, Jerry, you know nothing about putting together a movie or painting houses or something. They'll be like, let's talk about it. I can go toe to toe for anybody. I don't care. Let's go. Jerry, you've never been a doctor. You have no idea. I'm sure when he was going through the cancer stuff, I'm sure the stuff he was saying back then, everybody like, that's wild. We're not going to do that. But okay, I guarantee he wasn't just sitting back and being like, all right, yeah, whatever.
Well, let's come back on sometime later this week, and let's do our official season predictions episode like we always do on the One Star Cowboys podcast. Your division winners, MVP, who's going to the Super Bowl, all that stuff. And, of course, everyone's favorite Super Bowl halftime show and the Thanksgiving halftime show. Yes, we always pick it. Ooh. Usually we do pretty good. The Thanksgiving halftime show pick that everyone wants to hear. That's coming up later in the week. We'll have another episode getting you ready for Cowboys-Eagles. And we are going to be getting some more video-type content out to you this year on the One Star Cowboys podcast. So stick around for an announcement on that, in the coming days and weeks. And we'll be able to fill you in a little bit more when we can. We're not allowed to right now. Make sure you're following John and Saad over at The Athletic, doing knock-up work as always. If we need to break in with anything emergency, we always will. Kent Garrison producing this thing also does a good job on that Mad About Movies podcast. Go check that out.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Kevin. We'll see you next time a little bit later in the week on the One Star Cowboys podcast.
Michael Parson.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, blue label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.